Since MGPicker version 2, many improvements has been introduced. One of them is the path of the performance improvement. So that include like the loading of the picker file will be much faster, and also like the runtime of the picker file will also be improved. And to measure that, now you can go to the view and then the frame rate HUD, and you can see a little bit HUD here to show you the FPS. The higher, of course, the better, but this is calculate as to like 24 is the real time. That's the performance improvement. Since MGPicker version 2.4, we also introduced a brand new feature, which is import from file. You can just grab another picker file and import all the content from the picker file into current picker. And you can also import from selected node. By node here, it means picker node. So this is a quick way to bring in all the contents from other picker file or picker node into current picker. And this also comes with the API support. If you go to the API documentation, you go to the MGPicker view and then search for import. There's an import from file and import from node. And since MGPicker version 2.3, we added the icon support for attribute button, which means you can allocate different icons for different value on that Maya attribute or any DCC attribute. For the Boolean one, we can select the Boolean one here. It's Boolean. And then you can see since 2.3, there's a new icon tab here for the attribute button. You go to the icons, and then you can specify different icon for different state. For Boolean value, it's always off and on. And with that icon, now you can just implement whatever attribute experience as you want. And for the elam one, and then if you go to the icons, you will have this icons for difference for those two elam values. So now if I go to the switch different value, it actually switch the icons. So this is helpful when it's IK, FK in a value. You can just show different icon for IK and FK states. And there's also like you can choose to say, I want the icon in the combo box. And for the numeric value, for example, the int, or actually this is a float. So for float value, what you can do is you can specify a minimum value icon and a maximum value icon and then default value icon. And for any value that is between the minimum value and then the default value will be a kind of a blending between those two. And the same applies to default value to maximum value. If the attribute does not have the maximum value, then this icon will be ignored. The same applies to the minimum value and then the default value. And if you turn on the draw value, it will actually draw the actual value on top of the icon. And the same thing applies to the integer type of the attribute. It also have the minimum, default, and maximum value icons. Starting from MGPicker version 2.4, the mirror relationship restriction is removed. Before, in order to build up the mirror relationship, you have to place the pair of item into the same parent. But since 2.4, this restriction is removed. You can, if we switch to the mirror tool, you can click whatever item to make them to be mirrored. As you can see, those two items are wandering around. They have no parents. And those two don't share a direct common parent. But being able to build up the mirror relationship doesn't mean that it will behave as mirrored item. For example, this one, if I move it, it's moved in a mirror way as long as I hold the Alt modifier. And the same applies to this one. If I move it, it's moving in a mirror way. Why? Because even they don't share a direct common parent, MGPicker still find that, okay, if I go up and search further, those two actually share a common ancestor, which is this picker panel. So it will align the mirror transform using this panel instead. And for this one, they do share a same ancestor. Move this one using Alt hotkey, it will work. The only thing that doesn't work when it comes to transformation is this one, because they don't share any common parent or ancestor. But other than that, it still works for the other case when the operation is based on the mirror relationship. Since MGPicker version 2.5, we support multiple target values for attribute button that is holding a integer or double attribute. So before, if you create an attribute link to an enum attribute, we know that we can just say whenever you are in the value of haha or it works, this will be visible. So it's like a multiple selection. But for the float or integer attribute button, before we don't have that kind of support, but now you can do that. When you create the attribute link, it will pop up the input field for you, and then you can input multiple value separate by comma. So you can say, I want 0, I want 1. They both need to be visible. So now if I become 0.5, it's invisible. If it's 1, it is visible. If it's 0, it's also visible. Also, when you hover the cursor over this attribute link, it tells you that the target value is either 0 or 1. And we also introduce a new property for all the picker buttons here, which is use auto node. So whenever you create a picker button, you hover a cursor onto it, it will show you the auto-generated tooltip. But if you don't want to do that, you just turn it off, and then if you hover onto it, there's nothing happen. But if you have specified a custom node, if you hover onto it, it will show it. So this is only applies to the auto-generated nodes. Since version 2.3, a little bit of the improvement has been introduced to the align tool. So for example, we have 4 items here. If we choose to align to the right side, it will align to the rightmost item. But you want to have be able to select a reference item and ask the others to align to the right side of it. So how to do that? You just select all the other buttons and then last select the item you want to use as a reference. And then make sure you turn on the align to the last select item option. And now if we align to the right, it will align to this one instead. Since version 2.3, we support the custom separator between namespace and subnamespace and a base name. What does that mean? So for each picker file, we can set its namespace. Like we can set this as picker ns. And this namespace applies to all the picker buttons in the current picker file. If we switch back, we select this select button, and you can also set the sub namespace. So we can set the namespace to sub ns. If we try to click on this button, it's actually trying to select a Maya node name like this. So by default, we are using colon as the namespace separator. However, you can customize saying, okay, this colon is not a colon, it needs to be underscore. So you can just type by default, you can see this is a colon, but you can always type underscore and enter. And then if we try to select it again, it will become picker ns underscore subnames. If we switch back to the designer mode and go to this sub namespace, if I do underscore enter, and then we try to evaluate it. Now it's saying, okay, it's expecting to select the node name like this. One of the improvements MGPicker v2 introduced is the auto save and restore of the temporary picker. As you know, in Animator UI mode, you can hold the Control key and double click on the blank area to create a temporary picker, and where you can just create a different select button, etc., to store the temporary scene selection. And we can have multiple, or you can just use Control N to create a temporary view. Here I just create 2, and before, in version 1, this will be lost whatsoever, but in version 2, if you go to the setting preference, and if you check on the animator mode tab, and here you can dictate whether you want to save the temporary picker or whether you want to auto load the temporary picker. So we turn this both on, and then if we relaunch Maya, click Maya, don't save, and then relaunch it. As you can see, the temporary are restored. Minor improvement on the drag and drop support. So if you drag and drop a picker file onto the picker window, it will load that picker file. And if you drag an image onto a picker button, it will switch the button to image shape and then use that image. There are still other minor improvements or little features that haven't been covered in this video tutorial series, but they are very simple and very straightforward to understand. As the development goes, there will be more and more useful brand new features or improvement get introduced. So please stay tuned. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.